Why is the Harley Davidson sound different? So different. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. I hope you're well. If you like what I do here, don't forget to like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notifications bell for all future videos. So, Harley Davidson motorcycles, their sound is different from any other motorcycle. Why? Why, I hear you say, right? Well, most people kind of know why. It's all to do with the V-twin arrangement. It's all to do with the crankshaft, the pistons, the connecting rods, and how the connecting rods are mounted on the crankshaft. There's basically just a 1.1 pin, as they call it, and one pinion. And as it goes around, both con rods, both pistons move up and down the cylinders at about the same time, and basically one of the pistons is on an intake stroke and the other piston is on the power stroke, the combustion stroke, and that's how it goes. But what happens, there's a bit of a lag into the next rotation, and there's also a bit of a lag on the firing order as well. So what happens is you get this, what they call the potato sound. It's that pop 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 pop, the potatoes. So what happens is, at idle you hear it, right? You hear this sound. Whereas, let's say in inline 4, for example, you got the crankshaft and you got 4 pistons, and they're going to be at top dead center. Let's say you're going to see the piston high, then the other 3 pistons are going to be at a different point in the rotation. So let's just say each piston is 90 degrees later in the rotation of the crankshaft. Okay, so when that piston is high at the top dead center, the next piston that is 90 degrees later in the rotation might be at the bottom of the intake stroke. The next piston might be at the bottom of the exhaust stroke. The next piston might be at the top of the intake stroke. So all of a sudden you're getting intake, you're getting compression, you're getting power, you're getting exhaust from all the cylinders happening at the same time. So what happens is you get combustion all happening in a line, as it were. It's very smooth. That's why 4-cylinder engines, they rev smoother, they rev higher as well. Whereas V-twin engines, they don't. They have this kind of unusual kind of firing order, especially Harley Davidson ones. Now, other V-twin engines might be offset, let's say 60 degrees or even different degrees, or 90 degrees, or even let's say, horizontally opposed, it's 180 degrees. Well, let's say BMW 180 degrees boxer engine, you get this pistons going like that. One way is top dead center, the other one's at the bottom. Then it goes top dead center, and the other one's at the bottom as well. So all of a sudden you get this throw, and there is this BMW throw that happens. You get these engines, you get it in Urals as well, you get it in any kind of horizontally opposed engine. There's this kind of little wobble what happens. So the V-twin engine from Harley Davidson has a particular sound. Now, I'm not talking about the exhaust, right? Because the exhaust can change the note of it. I'm just talking about the way the engine delivers the sound on the exhaust stroke, because that's where all the exhaust is coming out. Right. So that's essentially what it is. I'm not going to go into all the details, but the video here is about why do the engines sound different than previous Harley Davidson engines. Let's say the M8 engine or twin cam engines. Why do they sound different to previous engines? Why do they kind of sound the same, but also they kind of sound different? What's going on? Well, there's always going to be different noises, right? There's always going to be slightly different sounds from any engine or any type of engine. And that is largely down to, well, the size of the cylinders, right? The shape of the cylinders, how well manufactured they were, what kind of fueling system you got, whether you got carburetor, whether you got fuel injection, the design of the engine, right? The components of the engine, the angle of the cylinders, the firing order, whether you got knock sensors on there. All that kind of stuff, that all adds to the sound of the engine, right? And how you hear it. And that is ignoring the exhaust. So if you want a true sound of an engine, right, what you have to do is remove the exhaust, because then you can compare one engine like sound with another engine sound. And it's really hard to do, right? But because the exhaust note is going to be completely different. So you have to have exactly the same exhaust. You have to manufacture to exactly the same specifications to get an exact comparison. That's never really going to happen. So you're kind of looking, well, what is the exhaust sound? And if you've got a like-for-like bike with the same exhaust system, same staging, let's say, you know, it's not been staged, it's a completely stock bike, then all of a sudden you can make that comparison. And you see that the Harley Davidson of the same generation, of the same engine, should sound exactly the same, right? But then they sound differently to previous generation Harley Davidson engines, whether it's twin cam, whether it's Evos, whether it's shovel heads, pan heads, knuckleheads, whatever it is. Okay, they're going to sound slightly different. They still have that similar kind of potato sound, that pop, 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 because it's the way Harley Davidson engines are designed in that 45-degree configuration, the way the piston conrods are attached to the crankshaft on one single pin. It's the way that rotation in the firing order happens. But the sound changes basically because of these other factors. These other factors in terms of, well, overall design, the manufacturing of those engines and the cylinders, and the firing order, but especially the fueling system as well. When you went from carburetor to fuel injection, that changed the sound as well. It could also be the refinement of the cylinders and also the pathway of the exhaust gases as well. You know, let alone, you know, how many cams it's got on it. Let alone, you know, how the heads are working with the valves as well. So all that is extra. Let's say the Harley Davidson M8s, they've got this kind of ticking sound, right? Well, that is because of the heads. That's because of the valves. That's because of the design of it. There's another sound that's related to the balancing. There's another sound that is specific, let's say, to the Softail M8s, as opposed to different to the Tourer M8s as well. So again, the engines are slightly different. They're going to feel slightly different, and they're going to have a different sound, irrespective of the exhaust system. But the reason why one Harley Davidson of one era sounds different to another Harley Davidson of another era is because of basic design and the way it works. Whilst it kind of works in exactly the same way, there's always going to be slight changes. There's always going to be differences. It's always based on the same old technology or the same old design, but technology is going to change a little bit, and in some cases it changes quite a lot. So that's why Harley Davidson engines, they sound different to other engines from other manufacturers, but also they sound different to other V-twins because other V-twins might have a different angle between the cylinders. They might have a different crankshaft conrod setup as well. There might be a parallel setup. There might be a V-twin that's at 60 or at 90 degrees. It might have different electronics on it. All sorts of things can affect the firing order and also how this engine operates. That's why Harleys have their own individual sound. Now, they tried to patent this, I think it was in the 80s, I actually can't remember the date. They tried to patent this to say, well, you know, Harley Davidson engine sound is specific to Harley Davidson's, but you know, they got a lot of backlash from other manufacturers, and then it was thrown out of court or whatever it was to say, no, you can't claim this sound. Other manufacturers have tried to copy Harley Davidson's, you know, with their V-twin motorcycles in terms of the Japanese, let's say. But because of their configuration, their firing order was different. So they didn't have the same sound. So nobody was buying those bikes. So they thought, we don't want those bikes because they just don't sound like Harleys. You want to buy a bike that's not a Harley, but you want to make it sound or act like a Harley, then just go and buy a Harley, right? That's the answer to it. Don't buy a bike that doesn't sound like a Harley and doesn't act like a Harley. But there we go. So all of a sudden then they realized those bikes weren't selling, so they started to produce V-twins that actually operated very similar to like a Harley Davidson as well. Same kind of firing order, similar kind of engine sound, not the same, but similar. So there was a kind of a much closeness to it. And now you got the likes of the Japanese V-twins, but also especially Chinese V-twins that are starting to come out as well. They're going to have that same kind of feeling. They're going to have that same kind of sound because they've basically duplicated what Harley Davidson have been doing for a long time. So the sound of Harley Davidson is it is because of the way they've designed that V-twin. then especially the crankshaft and the way the conrods and the pistons move off that crankshaft as well. So that's the kind of the firing order. That's why you kind of get, you know, a double burst, then you get a pause in that rotation, then you get another double burst, another pause, another burst, and that's why you get that potato sound, that pop-pop sound, that pop-pop sound, pop-up, pop-up, pop-up at idle. As you start revving the engine, then that kind of disappears, it kind of smooths out because you're not really noticing the gap in between. But at idle, you definitely notice it. Whereas an inline 4 engine, or inline 6 or whatever it is, you won't notice that that lag because it's all very equal. It's all very linear, the way that your power is delivered. Anyway, so that's the difference between Harley Davidson engines from other engines and the difference between Harley Davidson engines of different eras. It's basically the same design, but there's differences. There's differences in design, differences in fueling, exhaust pathways. The list is endless, basically. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do here, don't forget to like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notifications bell for all future videos. And I will catch you again on another video coming very soon. Bye now.
RevelatorAlf.